Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Annassa. Hmm, So happy to see you. So let's start with meditation. And this morning, I'd like to start with just the Om sound. And as we do the Om sound together, I want you to do it at the pace of your own breath. So don't try to follow mine, just whatever. Whenever you need to take a breath, start the sound again. And we'll keep the sound going for a while. And what I want you to do as you practice with the sound, go through each of the energy centers, starting at the top and work your way down. So you start at the forehead. Well, start at the crown and then the forehead and then the throat, the heart, the belly button, and the tip of the tailbone, and then into the earth. And so just sing the Om sound into each one of your energy centers. And then at a certain point, we'll stop and just continue to focus on cycling the energy through the central channel and your energy centers. So we're just going to maintain one Om sound for a while as we do the first cycle through the energy centers. Any questions about that before we get started? Okay, here we go. As you're ready, gently bring your attention back to the room. We know that was a little bit short, but we think there are going to be a lot of questions today, so we want to save time. We did get one question beforehand, and that is about the blueprint. And if the blueprint represents some kind of predetermination and the role of free will. And so here's what we'll say about that. The blueprint is something that we each agree to before we come here. And for reasons that we want to accomplish mastery of certain things in this particular lifetime. That's why we design our blueprint in the way we do. And this is not exactly predestination or a predetermined life, because there is a lot of feedback that happens as we go through our decision processes in our lives, so that what happens to us there are degrees of intensity to the we'll call it karmic attraction of the patterns that we have agreed to. And that karmic intensity can be less or greater depending on how our alignment with our highest self is playing out in our lives. And so our decision-making process about this alignment as the purpose of our lives is very relevant in terms of the karmic intensity of the experiences that we have chosen to live out. We'll give you an example. Rebecca was in a car accident a number of years ago that, depending on one's perspective, could have been very life-threatening. But it ended up that she was able to get out of the car in the middle of the accident and avoid any harm. Now, she had a lot of angelic help in that particular circumstance, but all of that had to do with alignment. There was no way that that accident was not going to happen, but the outcome was not necessarily predetermined. The potential outcome, yes, but the actual outcome itself had everything to do with awareness and help, both of those things combined. And so that's sort of a dramatic example. So the time of our death, no one gets out of here alive. We all sort of know that. But in our culture, there's a lot of denial around it. And it's not something that we, in a way, live with as an assumption about our future, because our culture has a lot of fear about death and about the events leading up to death. In our culture, we tend to hide our elderly and, put them in institutions where they live out the last parts of their lives for the most part. And not all cultures are like that. In cultures where extended families live together, they have different roles for the different family members, and everyone participates as long as possible in a family community. And there are good things and bad things. There are pros and cons about every solution that cultures choose. But it's important to understand that things don't have to be one particular way, that we can make different choices about that in our lives and in our families' lives. Anyway, the idea of living with death as a part of our daily structured reality is a pretty sane one. To actually begin to confront the possibility that our life will end before we're in a critical moment is a good idea for one major reason, and that is that the most we can do for ourselves in that moment is to reach for God inside ourselves. And if we train ourselves to do that most of the moments before that, then we can be pretty sure that'll happen at some point along that trajectory. And the weight of our intention throughout our lives can gather to make that a more and more realistic possibility over time, that we die in alignment. And the moment of death is not exactly often a moment, it's an event, it's a process. And it's a well-known physiological fact that different parts of us die at different rates. Different cell types die at different rates. But our conscious awareness pretty much goes with our breath and our brain and our heart. Those three things. But it's worthwhile to cultivate some awareness of death as a reality so that it's not a complete surprise. And at the same time, it will always be a complete surprise because that's the way our physiology is made. Our physiology is made to deny death. So we can understand that and live in that complication. We're complicated beings. We have a lot going on all the time. But at least thinking about it some and feeling into it and acknowledging that this happens to every human being is an important part of our process as conscious beings. So, did we cover blueprint, death? Oh, free will. The question also had a part about free will. So, every human being has free will. And this is part of what makes our lives so creative, is that we always have free will. And because of free will, we don't make predictions about people's lives because we understand that at any moment, free will can make a different choice. And so we have great respect for free will. We even though the lines look like they're going in a certain direction, and of course this is going to happen, and suddenly it doesn't happen because of free will. So free will is a good thing. And we all have it. And it's free will that gives us the power to choose alignment. And in this choosing of alignment over and over and over again, we begin to get a feel for that razor's edge of where that alignment is as we're riding through the tides of our life. And it is a razor's edge, which means we fall off all the time. And that's okay. That's not failure. That's called learning. And that razor's edge is holding the highest best for ourselves and the whole in every moment. And so as we begin to align ourselves with our highest and the highest for the whole, in every choice that we make, in every moment, a certain kind of clarity begins to arise of where that alignment is. And you understand in this discussion, we're not talking about any other. We're talking about our own inner relationship to our highest best and the highest best for the whole. Because if we are always thinking in that way, we will be of service to every person that we meet, because it will be part of our alignment as we discover what alignment is. Because the highest best is nothing but me bringing out the highest in you and you bringing out the highest in me in every interaction that we have. And as we bring more and more consciousness to those interactions, how to do that becomes more and more clear over time. So we think we answered that question. How may we serve further this morning? We welcome your questions.
Please talk about the differences and/or similarities between meditating with a mantra and sitting to connect with guides. What is the best way to manage the two, if at all?
So the question is meditating with mantra, meditating with guides, and we'll add meditating like we did this morning, just with sound. Om is a mantra. So we'll talk first about mantra. Mantra is really helpful because it can organize the pattern of your energy, the pattern and frequency of the energies in your energetic system to stimulate your awareness of them in certain ways. These syllables, most of which are from Sanskrit, have an inherent power and frequency to them that resonates with our psychic mechanism. And so when we say a mantra, we say it to our deepest inner. And that mantra awakens within us frequencies that resonate with our awareness of our psychic energetic light system. So that's mantra. And a mantra said with deep devotion over time has profound effects. Profound effects. So connecting with guides. It's our experience that we never tried reaching for guides. Rebecca never tried reaching for guides. That was not an intention in her meditation practice ever. So that just happened. So we can't tell you how to cultivate that, or even if it's something to be cultivated, we don't really understand how it happens. It is beyond your language for us to be able to express it. We will say that cultivating openness cultivating a field within yourself that is expansive and has well, it's interesting because desire and intention are things that often permeate our practice, whether we intend to or not, because we are beings that have desires. And as those desires gain momentum, there's an intention behind them. We're not exactly sure where we're going with this. So we will say that it's good to use mantra, especially in the beginning, as a way to anchor your mind to your inner practice. And there are a few mantras we would suggest. One of them is the Om sound, that you just say the Om sound as we did this morning into your energy centers and allow them to expand. It's a good practice, and then it involves your whole body and your whole sensory system when you direct your voice into each of the energy centers with the Om sound. And of course, there is an Om sound that becomes, you can hear it over time in the atmosphere. It kind of sounds like very high tension wires. It's a high pitched sound. that you'll become aware of at some point. Another good mantra is I am that. And you can say that into the space of each one of your energy centers. And of course, our favorite, I am in perfect alignment, which to us holds the intention that is really a good guidance system to keep ourselves on track with alignment with our highest and the highest of the whole. Mm.
I understand not reaching for guides, but how do we invite angels?
You know, in some ways it's similar. We just make ourselves available by creating a space. And in that open space is the invitation. And the most important thing about relating to anything the most important thing is that we hold our own frequency to the highest best that we can manage in any given circumstance. And especially this is true in meditation. In meditation, we really want to cultivate higher and higher frequencies within ourselves. And this happens by self-acceptance, self-love, which happens in our experience from using Ho'oponopono whenever we run into anything that is fairly gnarly in ourselves, to raise our own frequency. And really, the most important thing is to hold your energy and become responsible for your inner frequency as much as you can be, the frequency that you are radiating outward. The whole point is loving source energy, which is God. Loving our own divinity. Guides and angels are not the purpose of meditation. The purpose of meditation is alignment. Alignment with the highest that's available to a human being. And then how that alignment demonstrates itself through our lives in our feeling and our action becomes finer and finer as we become more and more masterful at being in alignment and maintaining that alignment. with the origin of all that is.
Can we make up our own mantras?
We can, but there's a question about how effective they will be. You know, affirmations and mantras are not exactly the same. There is something to the quality of the frequencies of Sanskrit syllables. We'll just leave it at that. There is definitely something to that. And it's magical and mysterious and worth exploring. At the same time, I am in perfect union, holds an intention and an awareness that speaks to us in our own language that has power. So it's not that these things are without power that we say in English. But that doesn't mean that Sanskrit syllables are more or less than, they're just different. And so it's worthwhile to cultivate both. And feel into the depth of where what you're saying takes you. Because all of us repeat certain things that we've turned into mantras inside ourselves that we don't even know we're repeating. And so it's worthwhile to take a look at those and maybe substitute I am in perfect alignment or Om whenever one of those comes up, to see if you can change the flow of that thought process just a little bit, just as an experiment. So mantras are an attempt to retrain our mind to a different frequency. And the more we say them, the more that happens. And there are levels of saying them. You know, if you say a mantra to something outside yourself, like a yidam deity, they call it in Buddhist practices, and then you say it to that yidam deity inside yourself, you might notice a complete difference of experience. You might not, it might be the same, but these things are worth knowing about. How may we serve further?
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Reese and Annassa.
Hi, happy to
Hi.
see you, Chris.
Hi, I'm always happy to see you too. um, so thanks for taking my question.
Of course.
It's around the relationship between fear and contemplation of death. So, is it possible that as we contemplate death and face that reality, that there will be less fear in our daily lives? Is there a relationship there?
There is a relationship there, as you've just. Okay, so the question is the relationship between fear and contemplation of death. And in the beginning, there's a very close relationship if we allow ourselves to actually experience the fear. And there's great benefit in experiencing the fear and allowing ourselves to experience the fear, because then we can actually address it. Most of the time we push it down. We don't welcome it. So it's a big deal to get to the point where you can allow yourself to feel the fear, because then you can engage the fear with Ho'oponopono. You can actually engage it. You can welcome it, because the fear is the fear of change, really, because we've come to know, or at least think we know, what our life is in this body. And we don't have personal experience of death and what happens after. That's kind of built into the system, that we don't have personal experience of it. We know from people who have gone there and come back, the people who've kind of gone there by mistake and have been told they have to come back. We know from them that there's a tunnel of white light, and we never hear about pain or suffering. We only hear about that tunnel of white light and this great expansion, and maybe the discovery of relatives waiting for them, and a feeling of overwhelming peace and maybe even joy. This is what we've been told. And then they're told they have to come back. And so then they find themselves back here in whatever condition. But this is what everyone reports who's been there and back. So we can kind of take that as truth, because it would be very unlikely that every person that happened to would tell the same story if it wasn't true. So that gives us some idea. And we can tell you that's true, that human beings are as eagerly awaited on the other side as a newborn is awaited on this side. And birth and death are very, very similar experiences. Now, that doesn't really help us, because we don't remember our birth either. So there is an element of faith as we face our fear. And that faith is that we are going to source energy, and we know from our experience in meditation that the closer we get to alignment, the better we feel. We know that from experience in meditation. And so there's no reason to expect that that union, which is what death is, will be anything but wonderful. At the same time, there's a lot of fear because we don't know. We don't really know. And the other part of the fear is that our physiology is designed to do anything but die. Our physiology is designed for survival. So it's quite natural as we go through the death process that our own physiology will do everything to keep us here, to keep us from dying. And that's the part that's really difficult about death, is that our physiology does that. But knowing that that is happening is very helpful. So, as you experience that gripping fear, the first thing you do is breathe. And you welcome the fear. Hello, fear, I see you. And you just say, I love you to that fear. And you hold the fear and the love in the same breath. And you just keep doing that. How does that feel?
It's pretty overwhelming and good. Yeah, it's a good way to.
Did you say in a good way?
Yeah, it's a good way to approach it for sure.
And in that love that you hold for yourself, bring as much nurturing as you possibly can. You are becoming your own, for want of a word, mother is what's coming to mind. You are loving yourself through this. Does that make any sense?
Perfect. Thank you.
You're so welcome. We feel it.
Yeah.
You have yourself always. That's really what meditation is about, that awareness. And as you come into that, feel the beauty of having yourself, no matter what happens. This is alignment. When that self includes the whole.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for the question. How may we serve further?
How do we recognize our inner frequency?
Practice. The more we pay attention inside, the more we recognize what our frequency is. And the more we begin to develop some rapport with it so that we know whether we're mad, glad, sad, happy, ecstatic. That's frequency. And as we cultivate alignment with our various energy centers, they begin to inform us of their frequency and a different kind of flow. Our whole lives we're taught to flow like this. And then we're telling you it's very important to flow like this too, that you have to feel it coming back. You can't just put it out all the time. You have to go both ways. And then there is this internal circuit. And then the acupuncture meridians, those are all real. There are these energetic frequencies within us that can inform us about our state of health and our state of psychic flow. And so as we become more and more aware of who and what we are made of, then everything begins to demonstrate itself as frequency. And different parts of ourselves have different frequencies. Different feelings that we have are different frequencies. For example, the feeling of anger and hatred is a completely different frequency than the feeling of gratitude, say. So this is what we're talking about when we say frequency. And so when we say cultivate higher frequencies, you know, the idea of whenever you kind of become aware inside yourself, just think of 3 things you're grateful for and see how that changes your frequency. Just do it now. Think of 3 things you're grateful for. Feel that change. So this is the power that we're talking about in changing your frequency and elevating your frequency so that you are aiming yourself toward the highest alignment for you and the highest alignment for everyone else on the planet, every other living being on the planet. So that's what we mean when we're talking about frequency. And as we were speaking earlier, the frequencies of what we tell ourselves or mantras that we may say, can have a big effect on where we're resonating in a particular moment. We hope that answers your question. How may we serve further?
How do we stay in a place of love for family and people who we identify as friends or intimate others who have such radically different views, especially right now, painfully different views, divisive? How do you find the love, even if it means letting go? How do you find the love? And do we?
Well, first of all, we find the love for ourselves and the gratitude that there are other people in our lives. And if we didn't have contrast in our lives, it would be pretty boring. Right? It would be really boring if we didn't have contrast. So when we recognize that people are going to fall in all kinds of places along the lines of contrast, depending on what is happening at a given time, a lot of our job is allowing that contrast to be and not fighting with it. Because given a slightly different perspective, we could be in a whole different place in our view of that contrast. There's always some truth in everything. It's not ever black and white. And believe it or not, most people are doing the best they can. They're really doing the best they can. It doesn't always look like it to us because, we have judgments. And these judgments are usually most harmful to ourselves because they cause a separation between ourselves and the highest because we judge ourselves to be faulty. That's the place where judgment really gets us. And then it always also gets us with those around us when we judge ourselves to be either superior or inferior. There are consequences in relationship. So again, we're going to ask you to cultivate an allowing of other perspectives, even though in this moment that may not be a popular view. But allowing other perspectives gives everybody a chance to reorganize, including ourselves. And it's really, really, really easy to get polarized in this moment, especially because our whole environment is about creating these intense polarities. And when these polarities get really, really intense, they can lead people to violence. And so it's important to bring yourself back to a middle ground. Back to an allowing. And, our fundamental commitment to alignment with the highest has within it a natural respect for what we perceive as truth. And as we cultivate that, we treat everyone around us with love and respect and some patience. And usually those three things will allow us to feel into the love. And when we can't have conversations with those we love because the disagreement is so great, then it's best not to have those conversations. Best to just avoid them altogether and instead go to the Annassa temple and speak your truth to the person, but you speak your truth from your highest and the highest best interests of the whole as much as you can do to get to that perspective. Then you go to the Annassa temple, you invite the other person, their highest best self, you deliver your message. Then you allow them to leave, you leave yourself, and you do not attempt to engage on a physical level. You just allow the energy to circulate through the dynamic system that is between both of you. And when there is an opportunity for conversation, you watch and see what effect your input from the Annassa temple had. And you go from there with a very open heart, full of love and respect for everyone you are connected to. And this means that sometimes that connection doesn't actually, you're not speaking deep truths to each other in the normal field of awareness. You may just be, please pass the butter is the deepest conversation you have. And that's okay. That's okay. Just hold to the love and respect. And in maintaining that, as everything changes, as you concentrate on flow rather than judgment, flow just means keeping some communication there. It doesn't have to be deep communication. You just keep the opening there. You don't shut off the relationship. You allow people the opportunity to change. And you just be yourself. The time it gets to be a problem is when we feel like we have to fight to the death for what we believe. So, do we ever have to fight to the death for what we believe? We all know that the answer to that is yes, at some point. So how do we walk that razor's edge? With love for ourselves and everyone else, appreciation for the fact that there's contrast, and gratitude that we're here at all. And amazement.
Learn to let go and love.
Is that how we learn to let go and love? How we learn to let go and love?
And like really mean it.
Where we really learn to let go and love is inside ourselves. Inside ourselves, because that's the hardest place. When we really face ourselves and our own fallibility, which I don't know about you, but sure happens here a lot. And so when we understand that every human being is doing the best they can, including us, and we are willing to let go of ourselves in love, and instead of judging, holding, nurturing, When we do that inside ourselves, it becomes easy to do that outside of ourselves too. Ever cultivating the highest we possibly can in ourselves, the highest alignment we can possibly have in ourselves. And the knowledge and awareness that two opposite things can be true in the same moment. And we allow that to be. We allow that in ourselves and we allow it in other people. And what that makes us is bigger and bigger hearted, because our heart gets broken over and over, because we will not break the relationships that we've made. We hope that answers your question. How may we serve further?
Saying I love you to fear feels insincere. I don't love fear.
You are loving yourself under the fear. None of us wants to be in fear. And so, our matrix of belief is that we just push it down. And then we push it down again. And then we push it down again until we are nothing but sitting on a pile of fear. And then the fear starts to jump up unexpectedly. So what are we going to do? How are we going to work our way through the fear to the love that we're made of? So we invite the fear. Hello, fear. I see you. You're welcome here. First thing you do is you look around your environment and make sure you're safe. If you're safe, then you say, okay, fear, I see that I'm safe in this moment. And then you start with Ho'oponopono. You speak to your highest self under the fear. I'm sorry, highest self, I can't get to you because of the fear. Please forgive me for not being able to get to you. Thank you for being there. I am so grateful that my highest self is underneath. I know it's there because I felt it. I love you to the highest self. And you just keep working the fear. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And you will notice at some point that the fear will dissolve. And you will have access to your highest self in that moment. You will feel the love. This is a lived through, cultivated experience that is available to every single one of us. And the beauty of Ho'oponopono is that we are speaking to our highest self. We are inviting the love back into our experience, into our field of experience. We are inviting the frequency of love to inhabit us. It's already there. We've never been separate from it, but our fear and our perception of any emotion that is keeping us from it is simply that, an emotion that is keeping us from experiencing our deepest, highest, best self. And so we say Ho'oponopono to it. We say Ho'oponopono to our highest self through whatever emotional experience is blocking us from actually being in alignment with that highest self. Hello, fear. I see you. You are safe here. I'm sorry, highest self, I'm not in touch with you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And you say it until the emotion dissolves and the love is freely expressing itself. That eternal spring within us becomes available. We hope that answers your question. How may we serve further? We're so happy to be here with you.
There was a comment just about what we discussion earlier about processing the feelings of others. And the comment is, isn't that what Krishna asked Arjuna to do?
What did Krishna ask Arjuna to do?
To love those who they were in difference with.
Yes. And for Arjuna, that meant killing family members. Yeah. I mean, this is, yeah. I mean, understand that conversation took place on a battlefield. Arjuna was like, I don't want to do this. I'd rather not. I'd rather walk away than kill my family.
Please say more.
Well, Arjuna was trained as a warrior. The whole context of that particular part of the Bhagavad Gita is that Arjuna was the head of the troops on one side, and the rest of his family was on the other side. His family was split down the middle. And he was saying to Krishna, I don't want to kill these people. I'm related to them. That's my uncle over there. I don't want to kill him. I would rather just lay down everything and walk away. I don't care what's mine. I don't care what's theirs. Why is this life and death? And Krishna said, no, this is your battle. You must fight. Now, really, he was talking about the inner battle that we're all fighting to be in alignment with our highest selves. But it means that our choices have consequences. Our choices have consequences. And so it's really important that we fight our inner battles, because what happens on the inside has great influence on what happens in the outside. For example, if you've ever gone to an Annassa temple and talked to someone on another plane and then watched their response later, you'll know that your conversation had a lot of power. So that's one way to see the consequence of our action in the unseen. So you can understand that everything you do to raise your own frequency in your own practice is contributing to the highest frequency of the whole. Every time we meditate, we are having a positive impact on the entire whole, the entire human collective, and all sentient beings. Every time. So we're not talking about something small. We're talking about the accrual of small actions over time that really renegotiate the flow of the whole by creating more opportunity for choice, because we have made space inside ourselves to be able to hold something bigger than just our fear. In addressing our fear and dissolving our fear, we create a space for the love that bubbles up from underneath it, and we become more love. So we don't just do it for our own comfort, although it certainly has that effect. We do it because we are coming into alignment. And one thing's for sure, there's nothing that feels better than that alignment. Nothing. And having been felt once, it's enough to keep you coming back for lifetimes. To feel it again. So we're coming to the time of meditation. So how about I am in perfect alignment? And we'll say it into each of the energy centers at your own pace. And we will, as much as possible, make ourselves and our energy available to you during this meditation. And you can sit with your eyes open or closed. No problem either way. So take your attention inside. And just go at your own pace with I am in perfect alignment through your energetic system. We're so grateful to have been with you today. Thank you so much for coming. We bow to your work.